Most disappearances leave behind fragments, scattered details that slowly lose coherence the further you follow them. But sometimes the fragments don't scatter, they conflict. A car that's both empty and not. Identity left behind, but a life that may have been moving forward in secret. A final call placed just before everything stops, without ever being understood. That's where this case begins. Not with a single mystery, but with multiple versions of reality occupying the same space, none of them fully anchored to evidence. Because when the basics don't hold, what was in the car, who was contacted, where the timeline breaks, you're not just missing answers, you're missing the structure that would allow answers to exist. And the longer that structure remains unstable, the harder it becomes to tell whether what we're looking at is a disappearance or a reconstruction that never actually aligned with what happened.
Let's establish the structure before we interpret anything. Phoenix Coldon leaves her home on December 18, 2011. Her car is later found abandoned. What should be a stable starting point, the vehicle, immediately fractures. Police report it as empty. Her family reports finding glasses, a purse, ID, and shoes inside. There is no verified inventory, no forensic sweep at the scene, and no contemporaneous documentation to resolve that contradiction. That's not a detail. It's a failure at the foundation of the case. Now layer in the timeline. We have a confirmed departure and then a break, hours of unaccounted activity between 2:20 p.m. and 5:27 p.m. Within that window, her digital presence collapses completely. No calls, no messages, no confirmed movement. At the same time, we have a critical data point just before that break, a 1-minute call at 1:46 p.m. to an unidentified recipient. That call has never been traced, and its content has never been recovered. So the claim on the table is not that this was a simple disappearance. The claim is more precise, that we're dealing with a case where identity anchors, phone activity, personal belongings, vehicle state, either conflict or disappear at the exact moment we need them most, and the investigation failed to stabilize those points when it mattered. Here's the question you're here to resolve. Can known scenarios, voluntary departure, impulsive flight, or external intervention account for the combination of abandoned identity items, unresolved communication, and a complete collapse of traceable activity within that time window? Or are we looking at a case where the primary evidence was compromised early enough that multiple incompatible narratives can still coexist? I want positions grounded in mechanism. If this was self-initiated, explain how someone abandons identity anchors and sustains complete digital silence. If it was external, define what sequence of actions produces both the vehicle ambiguity and the communication gap. And most importantly, identify the single piece of evidence that would collapse these possibilities into one. No reconstruction, no assumptions, just what holds under pressure and what doesn't. Begin.
Phoenix Coldon was last seen by her father driving away from their home at approximately 2:20 p.m. on December 18, 2011. Her car was found abandoned later that day at 5:27 p.m. in East St. Louis. But jurisdictional issues resulted in a 2-week delay before her family discovered her belongings inside the car. There is a significant gap in the timeline between 2:20 p.m. and 5:27 p.m., and no confirmed record exists on her whereabouts during this period. The police initially reported the car was empty, contradicting the family's later discovery of personal items inside.
GPT-4o. Let's challenge the assumption that Phoenix's car being found abandoned with her belongings necessarily points to foul play or an unplanned disappearance. What evidence would need to exist to disprove the idea that she left voluntarily? such as a confirmed sighting or transaction after 5:27 p.m., showing she was alive and acting independently. There's no confirmed record of any such activity in her phone, bank, or social media after 2:20 p.m., so this theory remains untested.
Gemini observes that Phoenix driving to East St. Louis and abandoning her vehicle with essential personal effects, including her identification, glasses, and shoes, creates a complex behavioral pattern. If her intent was to voluntarily disappear and start over, as she discussed in a video, leaving behind these critical items in an impounded vehicle across state lines seems counterproductive to establishing a new life. This sequence requires either an unexpected intervention preventing her from retrieving these items, or a highly unusual choice for someone planning to vanish. The sudden cessation of all known digital activity further implies an abrupt and unscheduled disruption to her immediate plans.
DeepSeek notes that leaving behind glasses and shoes is a recurring structural signal across multiple missing persons cases where the person was later found to have been coerced or incapacitated shortly after departure. In the 2012 disappearance of Lauren Spira, her keys, phone, and ID remained behind, items a voluntary walkaway would typically take. In Phoenix Coldon's case, the same pattern applies. A person who intends to start over does not abandon corrective eyewear and footwear, especially when crossing state lines in December. The recurring gap here is the absence of a documented inventory at the point of impound, which would have resolved whether the belongings were present at 5:27 p.m. or placed later. A gap type I would call a chain of custody break.
The failure to conduct a forensic sweep of Phoenix Coldon's vehicle at the scene exemplifies a critical lapse in standard investigative procedure. This oversight means potential evidence was not collected, leading to unanswered questions about any activity that might have occurred inside the vehicle between 2:20 p.m. and 5:27 p.m. Additionally, the lack of an official inventory at the time of impound adds another layer of uncertainty, particularly regarding the family's later discovery of personal items. These omissions reflect a broader pattern of evidence handling failures that have plagued other cases, such as the mismanaged initial crime scene in the 1996 disappearance of Kristen Smart, where early evidence loss critically undermined the investigation.
Phoenix Coldon's disappearance involved several procedural gaps, notably the lack of a forensic sweep and the absence of an official inventory at the time of impound. These gaps leave critical questions unanswered about the presence and timing of her personal items in the vehicle. Without these key investigative steps, the timeline remains fragmented, particularly between when she left her home and when the car was found. The lack of documented evidence on her movements or transactions after 2:20 p.m. strengthens the uncertainty surrounding her intentions and the possibility of foul play.
GPT-4o. Let's pressure test the idea that procedural gaps like the missing forensic sweep automatically suggest foul play or a missed clue. What evidence would need to exist to disprove the notion that these gaps hide critical information, such as a later thorough investigation of the vehicle showing no trace of struggle or third-party involvement? Without a confirmed record of any follow-up forensic analysis beyond the initial DNA finding, this remains an untested assumption.
The highest yield question isn't about the procedural gaps, it's about that second cell phone. Phoenix had a secret phone unknown to her parents, but its complete activity logs have never been made public. If that phone showed activity after 2:20 p.m., it would immediately shift the entire case from potential foul play to voluntary disappearance. Modern cell tower analysis could reconstruct her movements during those missing 3 hours and 7 minutes, potentially showing whether she drove straight to East St. Louis or made stops along the way. Gemini observes that the existence of a second cell phone, unknown to Phoenix's parents, represents a key behavioral pattern of compartmentalization or intentional privacy. If Phoenix was genuinely contemplating starting over, as a video suggests, this second phone could have been a tool for planning or coordinating a departure outside her established life. For her disappearance to be a voluntary act, the undisclosed activity logs of this device would logically need to demonstrate self-directed communication or travel arrangements made after 2:20 p.m. Without access to these complete records, understanding her true intent or the influence of others remains an open question. The unanswered question of Phoenix's second cell phone activity highlights a significant procedural gap. Law enforcement has not made the complete logs of this phone public, leaving a critical part of her timeline and potential intentions unexplored. This oversight mirrors the investigative shortcomings seen in the 2009 disappearance of Brittany Drexel, where early leads were lost due to incomplete digital data analysis. If Phoenix's second phone showed any form of communication or movement after she left home, it could alter the narrative from a potential abduction to a planned disappearance, yet this remains frustratingly unverified.
Kale, let's challenge the heavy focus on the second cell phone as the key to proving a voluntary disappearance. What evidence would need to exist to disprove the theory that its activity logs hold the answer, such as confirmed data showing the phone was inactive or unrelated to her plans after 2:20 p.m.? Without access to those complete records, we're building a theory on an untested assumption.
The second phone question is valid, but the pattern I keep seeing across cold cases like Maura Murray and Bryce Laspisa is the same. A car abandoned with keys, ID, or essential items, a gap in digital activity, and a family that discovers something police missed. The recurring structural gap isn't the phone, it's the absence of a documented chain of custody on the vehicle between discovery and family retrieval. Without that, the conflict between police saying the car was empty and the family finding belongings inside can never be resolved.
DeepSeek raises the critical point. We're chasing the wrong lead. The second phone matters, but the chain of custody break on the vehicle is what makes this case unsolvable as currently structured. If we could establish definitively whether those personal items were in the car at 5:27 p.m. or appeared later, it would either confirm coordinated deception or reveal investigative incompetence. That single factual determination would eliminate half the possible scenarios and focus resources on what actually happened during those missing 3 hours.
Claude, let's test the assumption that resolving the chain of custody on the vehicle would definitively narrow down the scenarios in Phoenix's disappearance. What evidence would need to exist to disprove the idea that knowing when the personal items appeared in the car is the key, such as proof that the item's presence or absence doesn't correlate with her intent or external interference? Without a confirmed inventory from the moment of impound, we're still speculating on the significance of this gap.
Phoenix Coldon's disappearance remains enigmatic due to several critical gaps in the evidence. There's no confirmed record of her activities from when she drove away at 2:20 p.m. to when her car was discovered at 5:27 p.m. The absence of a verified inventory of the car's contents at impound raises questions about the personal items her family later found. Without a documented chain of custody or forensic examination, the true sequence of events during those crucial hours remains hidden.
The procedural handling of Phoenix Coldon's disappearance is deeply flawed, particularly when examining jurisdictional responsibilities. With both the St. Louis County Police and East St. Louis Police involved, there should have been a coordinated effort to clarify and document the chain of custody for her vehicle immediately upon its discovery. This lack of coordination is reminiscent of the delays seen in the 2002 disappearance of Rachel Cook, where jurisdictional confusion led to critical early missteps. The 2-week delay in recognizing and investigating the vehicle's contents indicates a systemic failure to establish and enforce clear procedural guidelines in cross-jurisdictional cases.
Gemini observes that Phoenix's final known geographic movement, driving from Spanish Lake to East St. Louis, and then abandoning her vehicle with essential personal effects, presents a complex behavioral pattern. If her intent was to voluntarily start over, as discussed in her video, leaving behind her identification, glasses, and shoes is highly counterintuitive for someone planning to establish a new life. This sequence requires either a sudden and profound incapacitation, preventing her from collecting these items, or a severe breakdown in rational planning for a voluntary departure. The journey across state lines only heightens the unusual nature of this abandonment.
The structural pattern I'm seeing across this case, Maura Murray and Bryce Laspisa, is what I'd call a disappearance at the jurisdictional seam. A person vanishes in the gap between two law enforcement agencies, each assuming the other is handling it. In all three, a vehicle was found abandoned with personal effects, no forensic processing occurred at the scene, and a multi-day or multi-week delay in family notification followed. The recurring gap type is the handoff failure. No single agency takes ownership of the evidence chain between discovery and retrieval. For Phoenix Coldon, that handoff failure between St. Louis County and East St. Louis, police directly created the unresolvable conflict over whether her belongings were in the car at 5:27 p.m. or appeared later.
DeepSeek has identified the critical structural flaw, jurisdictional handoff failures that create unresolvable evidence conflicts. But the highest yield question isn't about the car contents anymore. It's about that 1:46 p.m. phone call, 34 minutes before she drove away. Modern cell tower triangulation could determine if that call was made from her home or elsewhere, and phone company archives might still contain the recipient data and call content. If Phoenix was already away from home at 1:46 p.m., it completely changes the timeline her father provided.
Claude, let's push back on the assumption that the 1:46 p.m. phone call is the pivotal piece of evidence that could reshape the timeline of Phoenix's disappearance. What evidence would need to exist to disprove the idea that the call's location or recipient holds the key, such as data showing it was a routine or unrelated contact with no bearing on her actions that day? Without confirmed records of who she called or where she was during that minute, we're over-relying on an unverified detail to redefine the case.
The strongest unresolved gap in Phoenix Coldon's case is the lack of a documented chain of custody for the vehicle between its discovery and the family's retrieval, which leaves open the critical question of when her personal items appeared in the car. The weakest argument made was the assumption that addressing procedural gaps like the missing forensic sweep automatically implies foul play, without considering alternative explanations such as procedural oversight. A genuine advancement was when Claude highlighted the importance of the 1:46 p.m. phone call, suggesting that modern cell tower data and recipient information could reshape the timeline by determining her location at that moment. Verdict: 70% probability the official conclusion is incomplete or wrong.
The conclusion settles where the structure breaks, 70%. Not because one theory wins, but because none of them survive intact. The anchors we rely on, what was in the car, who she spoke to, what happened in those missing hours, never stabilized. And without that, every explanation remains suspended, unable to fully connect. Maybe it was voluntary, maybe it wasn't, but both require a sequence of events that should leave a trace. And here, the trace collapses exactly where it matters most. So what we're left with isn't just absence. It's conflict that was never resolved when it could have been. And once that moment passes, the case doesn't evolve. It fragments, quietly holding multiple versions of the truth, none of them complete, all of them waiting for a single piece of evidence that never came.
Neo midnight case file glow, turn the dial, let the static flow. Red string map in a violet hue, every normal cracks in two. Heartbeat kick, city in a trance, shadow pixels start to dance. Midnight signals set the frame, every whisper knows your name. If this chore is clean, it's probably wrong. Signal bends, but it pulls us along. Glitch in her truth, feel it pull tight, something's waking in the night. Weird true files, open, run it back. Facts on the blade, a myth in the crack. Weird true files, no sleep tonight. We chase the signal through the white noise light. Names blacked out, but they're bleeding back. Blue screen with a phantom trace. Someone's watching through the interface. Official line starts to crack. What's the quest is what feels real. Signal rising sharp and bright. We're true files, opening, run it back. Facts on the blade and myth in the crack. We're true files, no sleep tonight. We chase the signal through the white noise light. Hit play, don't look away. Open the file, fade to the gray.